You're watching the Movie Dogs. We bark about the movies and nothing but the movies.
Welcome to the Doghouse.
Welcome back, OMG Pretzel Bites, to the Movie Dogs, our original OG sponsor. Check out River Monster Comics in Denellen, Florida. Celebrating their 3rd anniversary in the month of October. With the best prices this side of the state, it's scary. Check out River Monster Comics. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the Movie Dog Show, the horror edition. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to be talking about the original 1978 Alien, directed by Ridley Scott, based on the screenplay by Dan O'Bannon, legendary writer. Man, name is all over when it comes to science fiction. It starred pretty much a cast of unknowns, older people by Hollywood standards in this film. But they all went on to have some great careers themselves. I mean, the big star of this film was actually Tom Skerritt. Sigourney Weaver in her star-making role. Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurd, Ian Holmes, and Yabok Claude. All became great actors in their own right, character actors. It was released May 20th, 1979 by 20th Century Fox, and it ended up being a major franchise for 20th Century Fox that they never expected. I mean, this was right in between the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and this just was one of those, used the concept of what George Lucas came up with in Star Wars, with the used futuristic, almost utopian, dystopian type of world. It was based in the future. I can't remember what exact year it was, but it just ignited everywhere. It was just fun, and it was a great, scary film. I mean, we've had B movie horror or science fiction before, but this really brought it to the next level. And this was, I believe, Ridley Scott's second film. I mean, his first film, The Duelist, which the producers were really impressed by. He got the job because of it. And guys like Robert Altman and John Boorman were in consideration for this job to direct this film. Imagine Robert Altman directing Alien. Huh, that's kind of, I don't know. I mean, Tom Skerritt did MASH with Altman, so, I mean, I don't know. It may have worked. I don't know. But again, the film was, just, the xenomorphs were, of course, the big star. Even though we had Sigourney Weaver, the xenomorphs became iconic creatures, based off the works of legendary Swiss artist H.R. Geiger. It was just, you got this alien that you really don't know anything about. You really don't know where it's from. And of course, when it came to sequels and prequels, they started chipping away at the mythology and the mystery of it. But again, it was just, I remember seeing it for the first time on, I think it was HBO, and I was just floored by, how this film was just unapologetic for its violence and its horror, and the crew, well, everyday people that you would work with it kind of reminded me of Walmart in space when I now look back at it. So, minus the alien. But it was just amazing. O'Brien, who had just sometime before just got done doing Dark Star with John Carpenter, which was John Carpenter's first film, and he co-wrote that movie with Carpenter, and there was elements of that film that O'Bannon really thought could have been, this could have been a horror film instead of a comedy, which Dark Star was. And the alien that he had in there, he wanted it to be a little more menacing than it was in Dark Star. And so he took basically the concept of a truck driving in space motif, and he turned it into a horror film. And he ended up recruiting the help of a friend who was Robert Ronald Schultz. I think I can say his name right, but he was himself writing a film that would eventually become another blockbuster in the 90s, Total Recall. And so they decided, well, we'll put our efforts together. You help me do this, I'll help you do that. And of course, Dan O'Bannon ended up co-writing a Total Recall. As I said, the man's name is splattered all over science fiction from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But he got the concept of from his experience working on Dark Star and wanted to expand that type of idea. And he did a very great job when he did the screenplay himself. Of course, they did some rewrites, of course, ghost writing here and there, uncredited. But he at least he got the full credit of screenwriter, which he deserved. Of course, when it came to the plot, the crew of the Amsterdam, I said that right or not? Can't remember the name of the ship at all. Oh my goodness. But they were woken up early from a deep sleep on their way home, and because their ship intercepted a distress signal, and they went to this one planet, and they found this crashed vessel that had this room full of eggs. And of course, John Hurt's character gets, the face hugger wrapped around his face, that, which ended up becoming another iconic theme throughout all the films. And the idea of the design of the chest buster was kind of like, Dan O'Bannon's, he was suffering from Crohn's disease. So he kind of got that idea of the chest buster early on in the writing from that. But it was also inspired by a painting that was by artist Francis Bacon in 1944. He did a painting called Three Studies for Figures at the Base of the Crucifixion. So, very, very weird painting, if you ask me. But again, it was those combinations that inspired that chest buster. And the thing about the chest busting scene is that the cast knew nothing of what was about to happen when they came to that puppet shooting out of there. You see Veronica Cartwright character, her reaction, that is her reaction. That is not acting. And none of the people's, nobody expected it except for those who were in the crew. But Ridley Scott wanted raw emotions, and he got it perfectly when it came to that scene. And I mean, again, you look look carefully at Veronica Cartwright again, her character, and her reaction was real and became like a really wonderful, wonderful scene. Of course, John Hurt did that scene again in Spaceballs in the spoof version of it, where the creature popped out of his stomach, and of course he goes to the scene. Oh no, not again! And of course, in that movie, the alien, the baby Xeno, is dancing to Hello Dolly. But again, it is just an iconic scene that really, because the movie's a slow burner at first, but once that scene happens, it's non-stop. It's nail-biting tension. Knowing that the xenomorph, that's basically this oozes all this fluid out of him, and has this extended tongue-like mouth that protrudes out of its jaw and its throat, and that extra little jump scare that you get, the way it was wiping out the crew, and the fact that its blood was acid, boiling acid that was going through, making holes in the ship and everything. And then of course that would have been the big tension where they thought, that they thought their ship was going to be compromised. The ship itself was just a giant freighter, and it really was an odd looking ship. Whatever they were towing was gases and materials and whatnot. And honestly, I mean, just the way you really couldn't get a good look at everything, and Scott really framed it and filmed it purposely, to be like a slow moving vessel, and he did very well. I mean, the space scenes were just very, I don't know, it's almost like a moving oil painting, and it was just very well done. It was shot it out in Pinewood Studios in London, which a lot of films, would get. For some reason, some of the best films of the 1970s were filmed out there, and they were all successful films. Most of them, Star Wars, Superman, so on. James Bond here and there, so on and so on. Um, but again, it was just. I think though, when it comes to H.R. Geiger's Xenomorph, it really, I mean, that iconic look, and that has, I think, also inspired a lot of urban artists in their in their style of painting. When it comes to the type of like skull morphed into skin and tattoo, especially tattoo artists. I mean, you really look at a lot of tattoo artists these days. You could really tell the the inspiration of Geiger's work in their work. I mean, this episode was, I meant to have a gentleman named TJ on here who runs and owns the Perfect Spot Tattoo, who's our one of our sponsors on this channel. Unfortunately, during this time, we've had hurricanes and we've been delayed, and so just couldn't get the scheduling. But I can see that, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up to him, though, was that the inspiration of Geiger's art, and especially when it comes to the Xenomorphs, which was most famous out of all his work. But again, he was even brought in to come up with a concept for, I believe, Batman Forever's Batmobile, one of those, a Geiger influence type of. You could see the influence in Batman Forever as well with Geiger's work. The movie, it was a runaway hit when it came out. I mean, the box office was like $11 million to make, and it made 187 something million in the box office, which is a pretty good profit. I mean, it was pretty much like almost a low budget film in a way, for what compared to nowadays. But it spawned, it spawned one of the greatest sequels, of course, by James Cameron, Aliens, about back in, I want to say it was '88 when that film came out, or '87. But Cameron, you know, took this concept one step further, and as he took on the directing roles and the development of the story. Of course, we've had our back and forth with the Alien franchise with three, Alien Resurrection, and of course the Ridley Scott came back and did the prequels, Prometheus and Covenant. So say what you want about it. I've enjoyed all the films. I haven't seen the new one. We have a new one out that's an interval. That's a story that's in between this film and Aliens called Romulus, and there's a planned television show. Sigourney Weaver, she was in the first four. She's always been willing to maybe come back, but again, Aliens, is one of the it was voted one of the like I think the top 10 greatest AFI and greatest science fiction films of all time. It was just absolutely wonderful, and really, what again, when it comes to going back to the cast, I mean, the age range between the cast was 53, and the youngest was 28. Harry Dean Stanton was 53 when he made this movie. Everybody else was kind of in their 30s and 40s. Sigourney Weaver was youngest; she was 28 when she made this, and and they weren't glamorous or buffed or anything like that. They were everyday Joes, and that's what really made this film so different compared to anything around like it when it came to horror and science fiction. And of course, the next film, you got a little more buff people in there, and there were Marines. But again, that I think really helped. Their performances really, really helped. And then of course, Jerry Goldsmith's score was just. It didn't feel like a Jerry Goldsmith score. It didn't sound like it, but it had this romantic, odd, strange science fiction feel to it that, I really can't put my finger on. It just was different. And it just felt like, you could feel at ease, but it's tension building. It's bringing in tension and eeriness at the same time. And it's just one of his best scores. I think it's one of it. Not many people, everybody, are always going back to his score to Planet of the Apes or Star Trek: The Motion Picture. But Jerry Goldsmith's score for this film is, I can't recommend it enough to sit back and listen to the whole score. It is very well done. James Horner did the second one, and again, it was just, I really, it's a must listen. And of course, in 2003, the film was re-released theatrically, which I jumped at it because I wanted to see. It was a director's cut, and I went to go see this movie in theaters, and that was exciting. After seeing it always on the small screen, to finally get to see it on the big screen. Because I was 79, I was maybe 4, at least when it came out. I was born in 76, but again, I highly recommend those who are new to the Alien franchise by the new film or new films. Definitely go back and just watch this. I mean, it could stay a standalone on its own, and really didn't need a sequel. But again, the character Ripley, which again people were shocked because people were expecting Tom Skerritt because he was the bigger star because he had been in a few movies in that decade. He was in an Oscar-winning film, MASH, and he had really, established himself, especially over his career at the time. And no one really expected Ripley to be the sole survivor. Um, Sigourney Weaver, she was kind of the architect prototype of the action heroine or heroine, and that was very unheard of, a female action star, which was not her. Still a couple years until I really had to say until Aliens came around, where it established her as an action star, which she stayed, did as much she can when it came to action, but she was also a very talented actress. She was in Ghostbusters and Hannah and Her Sisters, and some great film in the 80s and 90s, Working Girl. So Sigourney Weaver was able to get a really great career out of this film, and of course, the original ending was that that she was putting in a personal log, and then the alien came in and bit her head off, which wasn't going to work. I mean, Ridley Scott purposely wrote a fourth act in this film. I mean, the film really ended when the ship exploded. When we thought the alien was on that ship, and she was on the shuttle, and she watched it explode, we thought maybe, okay, that's it. No, Ridley Scott had made a fourth act, which is very rare because it's always a 3-act play. But he made a fourth with her in this final battle on that shuttle with the alien, where she basically blasted it out in space. And that was, again, unexpected. You didn't expect the female to be the sole survivor. Usually that's in horror films, just straight out horror films. But in this, that was a science fiction type of action type of environment. She was the sole survivor, and it worked, and it was different. And of course, she had this surprising fourth act, which was the big exclamation point at the end of this film. So, again, I highly recommend you guys check out Alien. And of course, it merged in with Predator. They all share the same universe now. I mean, if you want to watch it chronologically ordered with Predator, and then go into the Predator versus the Aliens, and then go into the Aliens, it's however you want to watch it, folks. It's one of those films that, you know, it's what it is. But I mean, again, Alien was the birth of
major franchise that I've always got a kick out of the movies, with the exception of 3. But I do highly recommend this film, folks. Again, I'm sorry that JT couldn't make it, but do check out Perfect Spot Tattoo, located in Inverness, Florida. Got all the information on the description below. Big time sponsors for this channel, and they've got great Halloween deals for if you're in the local area. When it comes to their tattoo arts, they got a little flash sale going along when it comes to pre art for you guys to choose for tattoo. All right, folks. Well, we're right in the middle of the horror edition this month, right in the middle of October, and at the time of this recording, we just got over 2 hurricanes, and my birthday's coming up on the 25th of October, so do check it out. And I want to thank everybody who showed up for the premiere of my Friday the 13th Part 3 review with Joshua. That was amazing. That was one of my best premieres, and I want to thank everybody for taking time to, jumping in on the live chat and on the comments below, folks. All right, well, we're going to be continuing the horror edition here soon. With we're going to have Joshua Church come back, and we're going to talk about John Carpenter once again. And so do join us for that episode, folks. All right, that's all the time I got. Thanks for watching, and please keep on watching, folks. Bye.